Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the first edition of the Final Whistle for 2022. I have to get used to 2022. We have good evening, Chris, Joe, and Anna.
Good evening, Pat.
Evening, Pat.
Again, we have another man who's taking up the sun in Miami. He might tune in with us later on when he's finished with the 19th hole. Derwynne, hope you're doing well. Anyway, we're going to look back at the year that's gone and look forward, but we were just speaking in general about if an offence, in soccer particularly now we're talking about, is a sending off offence. It's always a sending off offence, whether it happens in the first minute, the 21st minute, or the 41st minute. You were just harping back, Joe, before we came on air about the game with Southampton, an incident last year.
Yeah, Southampton played Manchester United at Old Trafford, and they had a lot of injuries at the time. They had to play some of their academy kids, and there was a kid that was making his debut at left back, and he got it. I think it was left back, and he got into a tackle in first 30 seconds. The blood is rushing through his veins, and he makes a very poor challenge on McTominay, I think it was, and he went over the top of him, caught him with his studs on his shin or what have you, and the referee gave him an immediate red card. You know, so, and you wind back to the Liverpool game. You know, anywhere else on the field at any point in the game, Mane does that to any player on the opposition, he's going to be walking. And the referee has no right, in my opinion, to make a decision in his own mind to say, well, it's too early in the game, I don't want to influence the game. Well, that's his job, to influence the game. Protect the players, which if you're elbowing somebody, you're not protecting players, and enforce the laws of the game. And he did not do that. And to me, you know, they pick and choose the things that they want to do sometimes, and it just irks me.
But it's the very same with penalties, Joe's. VAR is bad for soccer. I think VAR is bad. Because they'll come back to the referee, even though it's gone to VAR, and then they'll tell him to go over to watch a television screen to see if it should be a penalty or not. If they're there to decide, then let them decide. They're watching it.
And I agree with you totally. I mean, the part of football that's in soccer, that's any game, to be honest, or any sport, is a matter of opinion. Your opinion watching it, my opinion watching it, the other supporters, the referee. And, you know, I was all in favor of referees making their own decisions. And I just think now VAR is going to a stage where we're looking at it and going, yeah, is that a clear and obvious error? Well, that to me is, I don't know, it just doesn't make a lot of sense to me. The referee makes a decision on the field and away we go.
Yeah.
Good evening, Derwynne Honan.
Hey,
I hope it's raining where you are.
No, it's in the low 80s and it's a little bit chilly today.
Derwynne, I saw that photograph of your legs the other day.
I know, they're bad, aren't they?
And you know what I felt like saying? I love the sun. I was feeling very sad for myself.
Yeah.
Anna, how are you? Happy New Year, everybody.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
We're speaking,
how are you, Joe?
We're just having an overview deal, but we're just speaking in general about soccer and incidences, a clear, absolute clear instance of sending off offences that are committed by players, and depending on what club they're from, they may not get sent off. That's still going on, isn't it?
I think it depends on the player, not the club.
There was a bad one yesterday, wasn't it? With Man City.
Yeah. No, there was a bad one with Liverpool and Chelsea.
Ah, right, okay.
Which one was Man City's one? Did you see, Chris, you see the match? I saw most of City's match.
I think there was one that should have been, although I'm on Saturday, but I think the one that happened yesterday is the more glaring one. I mean, I luckily had a bit of a break there today. I was actually working today, and I got a bit of a break, and I saw the ref watch that's on Sky, and even Dermot Gallagher would have given that as a red card. And I think the question that you ask about VAR and stuff like that, and about refereeing and officiating at the moment is this, and I mentioned the point earlier to you before we started about what happened at an All-Ireland football final years ago when a player decided within 30 seconds to hit another player, banking on the fact that he knew that the referee wasn't going to take action to give the ultimate sanction, because the referee didn't want to be criticised later on in the day or in the weeks ahead about making a decision like that. Yeah. I think one of the problems that you have, and one of the things that absolutely annoys the hell out of me, and it happened at least 3 occasions yesterday, when it was a clear and obvious offside. I mean, it wasn't even touch and go. It was like maybe 2 yards offside. And the linesman keeps his flag down, play develops for another 10 seconds, and then he puts his flag up. I mean, that's going to... And look, we all know that certain grounds can be very volatile at the best of time. That's going to cause a riot one day.
Why do you think they brought that rule in, Chris?
They brought the rule in because there was too many referees making bad decisions, right? That if it could have... So if the linesman puts his flag up and a goal is scored, then they can't go back. Right? Because so if you've got a situation like, say, Joe has beaten the offside trap, but he's marginally onside. But if the linesman gives him offside, then the whistle's blown and the game is over. Then they just have to restart. But the reason why what they've done now is that they're going to give Joe the benefit of the doubt. Let's see how it goes, and if they have to refer it, then they will do it afterwards, because it's basically letting off the assistant referee off the hook and thinking, well, I don't want to be seen making a decision. I let it continue, and then I put my flag up no matter what. So that's what they're trying to do, and it's basically another way of them, a bit like what's happened in rugby union, of them absolving all decision making in that particular instance.
But Joe, I was going to say that to you, Joe, about the soccer. It's in danger of turning out like the circus that rugby union is now. There's no need for a referee.
I mean, and that's the thing with it, and I agree with Chris there, you know. But the biggest thing that concerns me is that the injuries that are going to happen. We had one already happen when Conor Cody, the Wolves were playing. I forget who they were playing against, but Conor Cody keeps going when the player was obviously offside, and he collides with his own goalkeeper and fractures his skull. Wow. And afterwards they go back and they say, well, it was offside. Well, you know, what about protecting the players? I mean, I saw one in the game yesterday where you have the linesman on one side, like Chris said, he keeps going, lets the play go, and it's obvious that the guy is offside. Then you have the guy on the opposite side, a player goes offside and immediately puts his flag up. So again, there's no consistency. Now that would, you know, it was only the one time it happened.
Like you were saying that, look, something similar happened, if you think about it, Van Dijk. When that keeper took him down, he should have been sent off, that keeper, because, you know, but because they said Van Dijk was offside, so it didn't matter.
That's our point. That's exactly our point, Anna, because if the linesman should have put his flag up, but by allowing play to continue, players are going to still go full pelt into tackles. I mean, you have a situation where if it's 1 against 1 and the striker is on the halfway line, he thinks he's beaten the offside trap, but he hasn't. And then the defender catches up, grabs him by the neck to try and stop him, and could seriously damage him, or could do what they did in Spain years ago, tackle you from behind and do a hatchet job on you. You could lose. You could do your Achilles tendon for like 6 months. But right? If you look at it, like what happened to Maradona in the 80s.
Van Dijk was out for nearly 18 months. Like,
exactly,
you know?
Exactly, right. Because of the fact that the linesman decided to play on to its fullness, and that caused an injury.
The Final Whistle is the programme here on their media. Tell all your friends about us. It's great to see all of us still standing for 2022. Now, we sent around a little message saying maybe 1 or 2 or 3 highlights from last year sporting-wise. And I know, Derwynne, you're bursting to come in with the European Championships. Are you with this? since you're only around the corner from them.
Well, I suppose my two highlights would be, England getting to a final in a major.
Yeah.
And I'll be honest, my second highlight was probably watching Woods last week or 2 weeks ago play with his son in that father and son event.
How did he look to you?
He doesn't look. I think I don't know if he'll ever get back out onto the main tour, or
I don't think so.
Or because I think his leg looked so weak, and I didn't realise that whole thing. You know, he was touch and go whether they're going to amputate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah. That's how bad it was.
What actually happened to his legs, Derwynne?
Say that again.
What happened to his leg?
He had a big car accident, which is has suspicious reasons why he was involved in a car accident on his own, on a no road. He didn't hit anything else.
Careful, the lawyers are listening, Derwynne. Careful.
Yeah, allegedly. And you know, something's not quite not true without that part of that story. I would imagine.
Of course, there isn't.
Yeah, you're right, because I was reading about that, Derwynne, that they were. It was touch and go where they would amputate the leg. Yeah. So the injury must have been horrific. Yeah,
I think it was a lot worse than what it was actually published as, just a car accident where he broke his leg and different things. They were actually touch and go about amputating the leg. And when you watched him hit balls, and I was lucky enough to be, it was down the road, so I was lucky enough to watch it virtually live on TV here at Doral. But his leg, he didn't look like he had the ability to put a lot of power back through that golf swing.
Oh, I have, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, has he got to wear that kind of sleeve on his leg to stop the blood clots? So apparently he has to.
He's got a massive compression bandage on there.
Yeah,
a legging type thing, But that's also, I think that's just to give support as well while he tries to get. I mean, his leg looks noticeably smaller than his other leg. So the muscle has withered away and everything else. It doesn't look right. But it was nice to see him out there playing. But if anybody's going to win more majors, I think it's the little Woods rather than the big Woods.
There you go.
Now, there you two for time. You come back again, Joe. Joe, did you get a chance to think about some of the highlights, or one or a couple of highlights during the year?
I did actually. I have to say, I read the English press yesterday, and that they're celebrating England losing in another major competition as a highlight of the year. I have to laugh at that. There's no other country would do that, but there you have it. But my highlight, we talked a little bit earlier before we came on air, but my highlight was Leicester winning the FA Cup, and then also qualifying for Europe. Yeah. That was a huge thing for them, and everybody tries to turn around and say, well, Brendan Rodgers can't get his team into the Champions League and what have you. For a club like Leicester to be challenging where they are at that for 2 years in a row and just miss out is a huge achievement. And then, you had West Ham make it into Europe for the first time in I don't know how many years, and they're doing really well there. So there were my highlights. Rachel Blackmore winning in the racing, was a huge one. So those were my ones.
Now, Anna, I know. You know how Loud mentioned Liverpool? I forgot to tell you. You can't mention Liverpool in this program anymore.
No, my highlight has to be Kelly Harrington winning the game. I mean,
what about my legs, Anna? What about the tan on my legs?
No, don't even go there now, please. Don't go there.
That's one of the low lights.
I think Kelly winning that, and I'd spent so many years coming up along since she was 15 with her. But that alone, to me, that made my whole boxing career nearly for me.
Yeah.
Katie winning it when she won it. I suppose the difference was we all expected Katie to win it. That was expected, but But with Kelly, I've seen her struggle. I've seen her ups. I've seen her downs. And for her to keep going the way she did, and she did, and you know what people saying is true, don't ever give up on your dream. She never did, and she got her dream.
She had no, I mean, it's all very fine to say it after the fact, but in my opinion, she had no easy fight.
No, she didn't. Sometimes in boxing, it's all in the draw. It's whatever side of the draw you're on. Yeah. You could get a draw with all champions, and you could get the other side with no champions. But the thing about it is, Kelly did come up, but as my husband, the Lord of mercy, used to always say, if you've got to win, you've got to beat the best. And she done that the whole way up. And I know when she was going boxing, the French girl the French girl was a professional. And I know she was nervous about that one, because the day she actually boxed, she actually texted me and Kelly or messaged me. And Kelly usually wouldn't do that on fight day, you know. She doesn't. So I knew she was a bit nervous that day, you know. But as I said to you, go out and you box your own contest. You don't change for anyone else, you know. And she done that, and she proved that the champion she is. And I suppose the other one would be Katie, continuing to progress as world champion. But I think I am nervous of this year for her, because I have seen that she has slowed down, you know.
Well, she has, yeah, and I think
she has, and I keep defending her against these American guys that have up on these things that I'm into about she's not this, and Amanda Sarson will stop her and all of this, you know. I mean, I have to be honest, I am nervous of her boxing Amanda, but I look at Kelly's record as they're saying she had 20, Amanda has 40, but Amanda never came through the amateur game. So in actual fact, Katie would have a lot more than Amanda, but I'm still nervous. That's one I'm very nervous of for this year.
Serrano will be tough. Chris, what about you? Any couple of highlights from last year?
Yeah, I think, definite highlight was the Solheim Cup. And Leona Maguire. Limerick steamrolling the hurling to something that levels that I haven't seen before. Definitely, I think, Kelly Harrington, Rachel Blackmore up there. I think the European Championship was a good competition this year. It was a very last year was a very open competition. A lot of, I agree, and it's not when Joe's point about celebrating losers or whatever, that came from the BBC and the Sports Personality, when there was more obvious winners that they could have given it to, but they didn't. And
nobody.
I think one of the highlights I will take about as well, and it's kind of a sportsman did it, but it wasn't a sporting event, was when you see someone and from say rugby league like Kevin Sinfield, whose mate Rob Burrows has got motor neuron disease, and you see what people like him have done to help his friend. And I mean, while one of the other highlights of the year was Emma Radukanu winning the US Open tennis, I just have to laugh at that she's been given at the age of 18 an award for the services for tennis when she probably hasn't played one full year as a professional tennis player, when you see other people do so much more and get and haven't been, I wouldn't say get nothing, but haven't been recognized. That's what I would say. And I just think sometimes these awards are handled like they're confetti at a wedding. And but the highlights would be, and again, it's women. Women have come to the fore, and fair play to them. And it's, but I just will caution as well this about women's sport, and I hope Anna doesn't bite down on top of my Zoom camera when I say this. I think the biggest problem women's sport are going to find in the next 5-10 years is this, that it's going to take the women to go to their own events. I've been going to sporting events for the last 30-40 years, and I would say 25 to 30% of the male events are made up by women. right? Like All-Ireland hurling finals, soccer internationals, rugby internationals. Yet when you look at women's sports, the two things that stand out at women's attendances are either very, very young girls and men, right? And if you take, like in the GAA sports we play over here, a lot of the players who play like adult competitions are extremely young, 16. I mean, you could play for a senior team at 14 when you really shouldn't be near them until you're 20. And I think that's the biggest problem women's sport have got, that they make up 50% of the population, but I say they only make up about maybe 30% of their own attendance. They have got to get women going to women's events, and if they do, men will go, but the women have got to show an interest. If they don't show an interest, then what's going to happen is that it's just going to die off. But they need to have an interest in their own sport.
That's true.
I do agree, Chris. I do agree with you. Definitely. It's not even that. I mean, you see the women's rugby even, they're coming out protesting about the way they're being treated.
And I think they did the wrong thing by doing what they did. I think what they done is that, and this is the problem, and I won't go on. I think what the women's rugby did by doing what they did and writing a letter to the government, in honestly, was a shameful thing that they did, because they're the ones that didn't qualify for the World Cup, not the coaches, not the administrators. They've had, to be honest with you, they may not have got the same amount as what the men have, but they were never going to get the same amount because the men bring in millions and millions every year. So the point I'm making is this, is that they failed to, I watched the match on TV, right? They lost to an extremely poor Spanish team and there was no excuses. And then they started finger pointing everybody else and weren't taking the blame for their own performances. And I think once you start doing that, you're going down a slippery slope of basically saying player power. We're not taking any responsibility for what we do. It's your fault. It's your fault. It's that person's fault. It's that person's fault.
Who's that man there?
This is Pat. This is Gail Leslie from Doral, one of the top teaching pros in Florida.
Greetings.
Hello, Gail Leslie.
Hello from Ireland.
Hello, Gail Leslie.
Paddy's from Ireland.
It's all under the heel, Gail.
Excuse us, Darwin. Don't call us paddies. We're not paddies.
I take offense to that. I'll listen to the shanty English.
Don't worry, we're used to it, mate.
But in my case, I mean, we're mentioning women.
But that's the point.
What you were saying, Chris.
But Pat, let me finish, Pat. Let me finish.
What they say is the English have the uncanny ability to make wine into water.
And they get drunk from it too. But the point I'm making, Pat, is this: is that if you take the women's rugby that failed to qualify, right? You know, they didn't take the criticism well, and then they started to finger point. And what they did basically is that they have the IRFU, which is their governing body. So what they in any other line of business, this would be a coup. They said, you know what, we're not listening to you anymore. We're going straight to the government. That was a wrong move, in my opinion.
Chris, what I was going to say.
I have to disagree. We won't too depth, because really, look, they had genuine grievances of lack of facilities, lack of resources, and the coach who wasn't listening. They had legitimate, and the way they go about it is a question of opinion. But in my case, before we move on to the rest of the lads, certainly one of the highlights of last year for me was Tyson Fury and Wilder. There's no doubt.
That was fabulous.
There's only two people I got up out of bed that early in the morning. He was one of them, and Kelly Harrington was the other one I got up to see boxing. But Fury and Wilder had everything. Everything. Who's going to last? Who's going to last? The heart of the man must be incredible. To get up twice off the canvas. The second time was touch and go, but he did beat the count, because I looked back at it a good few times. But that's neither here nor there now. Wilder, I believe, is coming back for another payday. Why, I don't know. I've no idea. The poor man, he'll have an early grave, God forbid, because we lost two very good boxers this year, and they were very young, Leon Spinks and Marvin Hagler. As you know, they passed away last year, and they were not old men at all. They were old men in the way they behaved, but not in age, if you follow my drift. And the second one, obviously, Chris, you covered the Solheim Club. I'm looking forward to seeing Jessica and Nelly Corda. I'm looking forward to seeing Lydia Coe. I'm looking forward to seeing Lexi Thompson and Leonie Maguire and Dromone Castle this year for the Women's Irish Open, Derwynne, and we have you on commentary here, will we? Just down the road from us in Normandy.
I'll definitely be over. And Anna can buy me a Guinness.
Oh, I'll buy you a Guinness, don't worry.
Yeah.
When is the Irish Open for the ladies?
I don't know. It's September.
September.
September, I think. 23rd, 24th, or something like that. I think. No, I'm not too sure. Don't think you have a main sponsor, a few sponsors on it, but it'd be great to see it.
Oh, yeah. Well, the reason I asked that, I'm going to be back from my daughter's wedding in July, so I was hoping it might coincide with that. But
Joe, we'll organise something for you, don't worry. Let us know.
We'll all meet up, Joe. We'll all meet up for a drink.
I assume you'll
that was good to me.
You'll be flying into Shannon, will you?
I will, yeah.
There you go. Let us know when you're flying into Shannon and we'll have the cheerleaders up there, you know.
In fact, it's on the 22nd to 25th of September.
Yeah.
It is, okay.
22nd, 25th. It's great to see it back, really, I must say, you know. Obviously, Derwynne, with Maracana winning the British Open, you had Matt Chirama winning the Masters, and then you had John Rahm winning the US Open golf, and you had Phil Mickelson. I mean, the Europeans didn't get a look in, did they?
It's been a bad season, really, for all of European golf, really, to be honest.
Do you think there'll eventually be one union for golf because it's looking that way? All the money.
That World Tour is only around the corner.
Yeah.
Yeah, don't be shocked if there's a few trial runs next season or this season with some of those joint venture events. There'll be definitely a World Tour, I'd say, within the next 3 years.
Darwin, can you see any good young golfers coming up?
There are loads, Anna. There's dozens and dozens of them. You know, I think Victor Hovland is probably going to be the next superstar over here in America.
And the Danish twins.
Yeah, I think I say the eldest one. That's ridiculous to say that.
Mm-hmm.
The one who won first, he's the one who's slightly better than the other one.
Yeah.
But I think you'll see loads of new names coming out on the tour.
Maybe that's what they need, Darwin. Maybe that's what they need now.
If you think about it, Anna, there's a whole, there's a massive big change coming with all of that. You know, the names. If you think of the Poulters and the Harringtons and there's a whole new wave coming through there for European golf. And I think
I know them will be parochial, but I thought Lowry had a reasonable year.
Yeah, I think Larry did. Yeah, I think Larry's one of those that's a little bit of a sleeping giant. I think if someone can wake him up, he could win loads.
Yeah, absolutely, I totally agree. I mean, Larry, to me, just, I don't know. I think the problem with European golf, Derwynne, is that if you go back, say, 20, 30 years ago, the majority of the European players did maybe 4, 5, 6, 7 years on the European tour. When they were good enough, they were gone to the States. Now what's happening is they've gone to the States before they've ever gone on the European tour. So the European tour now is basically like, say, it's like the championship.
It's the feeder tour for the American tour.
It's like championship compared to the Premier League. I mean, it's just, you look at it and you think and this is the biggest problem that Irish golf will have to face, is that when you look at the names that are on the European tour, you're going, Jesus, like Paul Dunn, who did well a good few years ago, he's struggling on the European tour.
Yeah.
He's struggling. And you're looking and going, that these guys, you can think, well, hang on a second now. If these guys are not making their names on the European tour, they're not going to get to America.
No. Seamus Powers.
To give you, you've got like,
no, it's a tough competition.
You've got some of those federations, the Finland, the Swedes, Norwegians,
pumping big money.
They invest so much money into that golf federation.
They do.
And, I've been at Trump Doral here in Miami for the last, 4 weeks.
Yeah, we know.
Tough life, isn't it?
In that 4 weeks,
must be very tired.
You've had Norway, Sweden, Austria, Germany, Switzerland. They've all been over here for winter breaks, and all their squads have been hitting balls and practicing. And I've been lucky enough to stand there and watch some of these kids, and they're not kids; they're young teenagers, shall we say?
Yeah.
They're all going in through the American collegiate system. So that European tour is going through a great big transition right now. Right. Because the names that we've all grown up playing with or knowing or whatever, listening to and watching, that's old school now. They've gone.
Yeah.
Like Chris was saying, the American tour is playing for so much more money. And if you're in that category that you can play over here, why wouldn't you want to play over here?
The final whistle is the program here. This is Monday, the 3rd of January, our first show of 2022. And Monday night, obviously, Wolves have just beaten Man United 1-0 in Old Trafford. The score is in.
Oh my God.
So Wolverhampton Wanderers 1, Man United 0 in Old Trafford, which is a bad result for Man United because, they were playing at home.
Sorry, I know, Chris, but it is a very bad result for Man United.
Of course, they're shambles. I watched the first half before I came up here. To be honest with you, it's like an old report years ago. They were lucky to get 0.
And Joe Waters, since we're on soccer and we don't want to lambaste Man United on their own because really they are a big club. They're a worldwide brand. And the Glazers, I was interested, I didn't realise that they own Tampa Bay Buccaneers as well, the Glazers.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And I was just reading a bit about them today, about Tampa Bay. They had it also with your man walking off the pitch, Brown, is it?
A few United players didn't do the same today.
I don't want any, I'm out of here. But going back to Man United, the problem isn't the manager.
No, it's not the manager. The problem is
the players. It's the players.
Yeah, players. Pat.
It always comes back to the players. Managers can send out what they send out, but if players are not going to play and give their best effort, then you've got no chance. And that, the whole thing with United is they have so many players that are similar type players, and they can't find room to get them all in. When you're looking at guys like you've got Martial, you've got Sancho, you've got Greenwood,
Ronaldo.
You got the English boy Rashford. All wide players, and you can only play 2 of them at a time. And you have no midfield players. Let's be honest, Manchester United do not have a midfield to rank with any of the other top teams.
Freddie's useless, Joe.
Yeah.
And I don't want to say that. And as a United fan, you watch him play. Now, I've not watched any football for like a month, but that I bet Fred gave 6 passes away in his last game for Man United.
He passed one. He passed one into touch the other day.
Yeah,
I was watching it.
You sit there and it's just like, Matic is his best days are way gone. The one I feel really sorry for as a United fan, and I've been a United fan all my life. Cavani, I cannot believe Cavani can't play in that first team.
I know. He played today.
That he's not playing with Ronaldo up front and having the 2 of them play and then organising around that. But you got Bruno Fernandes, who half the time doesn't look interested. It doesn't look like it's going his way. So he decides he's not going to work at it. I just wonder about him. Was he just a one-hit wonder kind of thing where he came in out of the blue, scored a load of penalties?
But Derwynne, I know, Derwynne, you might see I'm picking on you because I didn't speak to you for a long time. But do you think in the European Championship that the manager of the English team, the 2 biggest decisions he was to make, he failed miserably?
I think that whole thing for England, they did well to get to the final.
Yeah, let's be fair.
They were outplayed in the final. Whether that's they weren't good enough, whether that's the finals at Wembley, the pressure, 1966 and all that other crap that comes out. You know, there must have been pressure on them that night, whether we believe it or not. Whether, you know, Joe, you've played in big games. You know, there's got to be some pressure on them with all that. They know 66, don't they? I mean, every England, probably every football fan knows about it. I mean, even the German football fans probably know about it.
They do.
I mean, you know, I think they just, for United, I think, without switching back to United, I think you've got the Swedish lad at the back who if you turn him, he's like trying to turn the Titanic. You know, he's so slow to try and get back.
Harry Maguire?
No, well, Maguire's just
Maguire can't even catch him.
Isn't it?
But I think, lads, that it has a lot to do as well. Do you remember we spoke when the manager was being sacked and they were bringing a new manager in, and they wouldn't play for the manager. But I don't think it's that. I personally think, looking back through the years at all the teams in England, they had these academies they came up through. Like Notts Forest was one of the best academies. You had Radukanu and all them with a Brady, they came through there. But because of being allowed so many foreigners in to play, the English kids and the Irish kids have nowhere to come up from now. No. And not alone United, but if you look at the English team, you know, I mean, they haven't got the quantity that they would have if it was mostly English kids or men playing soccer for the teams in England.
No, I think that I totally disagree with that thing, because basically what happened what happened was, and there's two things about it, okay, is that, okay, I agree to a point about foreign players coming into the UK, but you have to remember Irish players are foreigners too. Okay, so let's not step away from that fact. And the fact is that clubs now, because of the amount of foreigners that you have, will not pick Irish players because they know they can get talent from 25, 26 other countries in Europe, Africa, and all. And the same thing happened to German football too in the 90s and about the last 20 years. They got so much cheap labor, for want of a better word, from Eastern Europe, from Russia, from Africa, that they didn't develop their own players. I mean, you look. I mean, my young lad is only 17, and he said to me the other day, Dad, he says, can you name me any other league in the world where the top club can take two of the best players and the manager from the second best team in the same country? And that never happens. That's basically like, say, Manchester City raiding Liverpool or Chelsea and saying, right, we're taking your manager and three of your best players, whether you like it or not. And that's what they're doing in Germany. Why? Because the best players that they have are in the top two clubs, and there's nothing in between. There's nothing in between. And the point and the problem that you have is this: is that English clubs have, for the last 25, 30 years, from the Premiership, when the money was flooded by television, have gone and paid astronomical wages to English players who don't deserve it, because there is now a premium on English players compared to those coming from other countries. I mean, you wouldn't see a German in the English league 30 years ago. They're all over the place. You wouldn't see French people in the English league 30 years ago. Now you can nearly pick a best 11 from French players playing in the English league. And that's the problem. And Irish players, because we don't have a proper professional league, are way down the pecking order, because nobody is going to take the chance, no club is going to take the chance, like, say, Arsenal did in the 70s, with the likes of Frank Stapleton, David O'Leary, and Liam Brady. Those days are over, lads, and that's it.
Well, in a nutshell, I think that do what Man City do. Get out your checkbook, spend $500 million, buy the league.
And what's wrong with that? Because everyone else is doing it, Joe. Everyone else is doing it.
So people should stand back and look who are concerned about soccer. The ordinary punter like ourselves, they don't give a fiddlers whether you come or go to the match. It doesn't make any difference anymore. So soccer is in a serious trouble without they realising.
I'll say this to you now, and Joe will back me up in this because he lives over there, okay? The most socialist sporting country in the world is in the American sports. Why? Because most of them have a salary cap, and they have a situation where the worst team gets the best pick the following year. That never happens in any other country. Believe it or not, they want the bad teams to improve. Unlike the likes of England, Germany, France, they actually are, believe it or not, the most socialist of sporting countries there are.
Now, lads, Joe, I have to go back to our hero Tom Brady. He's Tom Brady. We're not going, because we're in a new year, we're not going to lose him. We're not going to give up on him. But Tampa Bay Buccaneers, they've qualified obviously now, like many other teams, for there's a playoff series now, isn't there?
Right.
They've qualified. I didn't read all the details today. There was too much information. I couldn't get through it all. I know that it doesn't matter what happens in the next game, they're through to the playoffs, and then that's all divided up as well, depending on where you finish in the 4 conferences. But they're in a healthy position, Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And the Glazers, of course, the Glazers are in it. They're business people. They're in it for the money. Just $338 for some of the seats to watch Tampa Bay. $268 and $228. I didn't realise the prices to watch it.
And it'd be $24 for a beer.
Oh, God.
Oh, forget about it, Joe. I won't be going visiting.
And you get a straw with that.
A friend of mine went up to see the Seattle Kraken, the ice hockey team up there. She got 3 tickets, and it cost her. She bought 3 beers, cost her $75.
Oh my God!
For 3 beers. Yeah. So I mean, they're making money hand over fist. They really are.
But now, Joe, saying that, when I went to see Katie Taylor, we say fight for her first world title in Cardiff. I went outside, and these were going around with these things on their back with beer in it, putting it into cups. And it was 14 sterling for a pint of beer there. 14 sterling. No
wonder they didn't win the soccer. They couldn't drink. They couldn't afford to drink. But no, I'm only joking.
I mean, that's an awful lot. They're exploiting people in sports, that sell alcohol.
The thing is, those people are prepared to spend that money.
Yeah, I wasn't, Joe.
We'll mention a bit of rugby union before we finish. Chris, the All Blacks in Ireland, that was a good victory. I know, look, there's a lot of talk about it, but you can only play the match in front of you, play the people in front of you. They're all saying, the All Blacks had a long season within their season and all of that, and Ireland are only beginning there or whatever. But overall, a victory against one of the best rugby union teams in the world, really. It was a good day.
Well, I'll be honest with you. If that's the philosophy, it's actually easier to beat a team when they're at the beginning of their season, because the New Zealanders have been battled hard, and while Ireland hadn't played a match in 6 to 9 months, so I don't think that one washes. The problem was that the All Blacks got caught out badly because they just didn't expect Ireland to turn up like they did, and that was the problem. And it came to a point that when they realised, Ireland actually probably played their best game than in probably about 4 or 5 years since they beat them in Chicago, or when they beat them in Dublin a couple of years later. It was probably one of the best performances, and we didn't expect that, because if we like to remind you, Pat, you were expecting a new coach at that stage.
I was, yeah.
But it's the same thing that happened in Chicago. It's the end of their season. They're going out and they're touring, and really, they're not even preparing for the next World Cup. They're just going on, in my opinion, they're going on an end of season tour that's going to fill the coffers to start the next World Cup defense kind of thing and getting ready for it. I think that's when we always seem to do well against them, is during those periods. And then they kick it into gear.
Derwynne, you're looking forward to this year. I suppose your aspirations would be reasonable for, I suppose, Man United now. I suppose if they finish in the top 10, they'll be fine.
If they finish top 10, they've done well.
Geez, that's patronising, Pat, in fairness.
They qualify for Europe.
No, I'm only staggering. I shouldn't be staggering.
I know you are. You're done.
I think
Will you see,
Chris?
Derwynne, can you see any European winning any one of the 4 majors this year? I think I agree with you about Victor Hovland.
I think Hovland is your best bet. Yeah, I couldn't see much past Hovland. I'm not sure about Rahm, if Rahm's in form.
Yeah.
I'll say about Rahm. I'm not sure about him.
Yeah.
But I think Hovland.
I'd say
when you're talking about those 2 guys right there, that's 2 names from Europe. How many Americans are out there that could win any of those Opens?
Dozens.
Yeah. I think, you were talking earlier about the Finns and the Swedes, how much they put into it. But, I mean, realistically, how many, for every 1 European that we are developing over in Europe, how many are in America coming through the system?
Thousands.
Hundreds.
Yeah, I'd say if you look at the collegiate system, you've probably got out of all the golf colleges that you want to name, you've probably got 60 kids who you could sit there and say, well, those 60 are going to make a mark within the next 5, 6, 10 years.
Yeah.
I think if you said about Europe, I'm fishing around with Rahm and Hovland. And I'm thinking, I'm struggling after that.
You are.
Yeah.
And Anna, looking forward to 2022, just before we wrap up, we'll have a quick run around. I suppose we both, and anybody who's interested in sport in a broad level, would hope at last that the IABA would sort out all their problems.
Well, I'm caught in the middle of it, and I don't like being caught in the middle of it. And if you take support away from your governing body, well, then you're pulling away from your governing body. And then when the governing body is putting a sanction or trying to put a sanction in place to put a vote of no confidence in you, can you blame them? I don't know. I abstained from the vote on the night, and I'm still getting not nice comments about doing that. I love boxing. Put me into a room full of boxers and I'm happy. Put me into a championship, I'm happy. But don't give me the politics of it. And I know we need the politics of it. We really do. But what a lot of people and a lot of clubs in Ireland, they really don't care who runs boxing, as long as the championships go ahead. They don't see the work that we have to do behind all of that.
I know that.
And they also don't realise that we're not just the IABA. We're a company now, and you have to go by company rules and company law.
Yeah.
So I'm just hoping we have 2 championships now coming up in the next month. We have our under-22s and our under-18s. And those that were stepped down, that their membership was revoked from them by an outside body of 2 barristers and the chairperson of another sport, who looked into it 3 or 4 different meetings, and that's what they came up with, that they take off their membership from them. They now are back in at the moment because they're going before the Sports Council, independent body. So until they're being brought in to sit before this body, they will be allowed to their membership to be reinstated until then.
Okay. So, now, Chris, I suppose you're looking forward to 2022. You're a Clare man. I'm a half a Clare man, but I suppose to be parochial, I suppose Clare will do well in the hurling.
I don't know. What I will say is this, that I got an awful shock when I saw the massive fixtures plan and saw the All-Ireland hurling final for the 19th of July. I think that's a promotional disaster for the GAA.
I think that'll be changed.
Well, maybe because of the situation we find ourselves in with the virus and all that, but I think the 19th of July and the football final the following week is an absolute disaster when people here are on their holidays, and it's just you're giving. And I know the reason why they're doing it, but I just feel that it's coming to a point that, you know, you're going to have to start making kind of a line. You're going to have to kind of have like demarcation between club players and county players, because what's happening is that you have a situation where hurling as a summer sport is going to have a 26-week season. Yet over half of that will be played in winter conditions and spring conditions. And you're leaving 14 weeks of the best time of the year vacant that allows other sports to do it. And everyone says, what about the club season? But in honesty, there's club matches that have been happening on TV and whatever for the last 3 or 4 months. I haven't even sat down to watch one. Why? Because it doesn't interest me. It's a bit like and this is what the point. And for someone like Derwynne who probably doesn't understand, I put it this way: it's basically like saying that your Premiership and your elite game is now going to be over by say mid-March, and you're going to be tying, and your Sunday league football now takes precedence for the rest of the year. I mean, it might suit, you know, the lads going to the Dog and Duck on a Sunday. But when the guys in the following village or town, they're not going to care about what happens in the Dog and Duck. And that's the problem. And I think it is a massive blunder in the GAA to give over August, September and October to and half of July to other sports. And kids will just turn off.
And Joe, so when you're over anyway, is it June you're coming over? July. Well, the soccer season is nearly over then. So you never know.
Maybe keep 3, 2 out of 4?
2 out of 3.
2 out of 3. He's doing a TV
what are you looking forward to, Joe, next year, 2022? In the sense
actually, you know what I'm really looking forward to? I'm looking forward to see what happens with Liverpool in this running. With losing the players that they're losing.
Yeah.
I thought that Liverpool were, you know, we talked about them earlier, you know, they don't have the squad that some other clubs have. But I really thought that they might push Man City this year. But with the result, with losing at Leicester and then time with Chelsea yesterday, and then losing the guys that they're going to lose. I think they're losing Mane. They're losing Salah. Is Chiesa going as well? So there's a few of them going, and I'm just going to be interested with the FA Cup coming up. Again, will they play probably their youth team in that? Possibly. And then they have the Champions League coming back around again. So, you know, I mean, their season could effectively be over by the time the guys get back from the African Cup. You know, so I'll just be interested to see how that one works out. And I hope it works well for them because I love the way they play. I enjoy watching them. They always make a game of it. They're always worth the entrance fee. So I'll be interested to see that.
Now, Derwynne, before we see you next September in Tramore in the Newmarket the Ladies Irish Open, between now and then, I would say hopefully Man United will improve. I don't know, will they bring in any more players? I have no idea. I have no idea what the budget there. I have no idea.
Can you see United beating Villa in the cup? Because I can't.
No.
I can, yeah. Villa haven't up to much.
Well, they're United at the moment.
Derwynne, let me tell you this. My young lad said to me the other day, he was on his phone and he says, apparently Peter Drury was doing the commentary of the match Man United were playing last weekend. And he says that the new manager, who everyone is now calling Wreck-It Ralph, right? Right. Apparently, he says that. You mean Peter Drury says, and I see that Ralph Ragnick is now bringing in a new type of pressing game. Yeah, depressing.
Well, before we finish, I have to mention the Formula One. I thought it was a farcical.
Totally agree.
Farcical. What do you think, Joe? Did you see the finish of it?
I did. I mean, I watched the previous race, And this one, I followed it online because I was up at the canal. I didn't get service up there. So, but, you know, to change the rules, you know, 2/3 of the way into the race, or even deeper into the race than that, just made it look so ridiculous. You know, it just did. And where it all came from, I don't know. I mean, they were talking about, from what I read, they were talking, well, they didn't want Hamilton to win it again. They wanted somebody new and fresh in there to keep the interest in it. But, you know, if you're going to have something, the powers that be during the middle of a game, whatever game it happens to be, and they change the rules 3/4 of the way through, then nobody's going to take this seriously anymore. Because they're going to ask what the fix is in. When's it going to happen?
It's my ball. I'm taking it away because I'm losing.
Yeah. I think what they should have done in that race was this: that when the moment that crash happened, they should have stopped the race and had a 5-lap race, then having a 1-lap race where they basically allowed 4 cars to kind of unlap themselves. I mean, it was worse than taking your ball home and, you know, and crying to your mammy or whatever. It was manipulation, and now I don't agree with Lewis Hamilton 99% of the time, but he said it was manipulation, and I have to agree with him.
And Lewis Hamilton, to me, has been the finest driver in the last 7 or 8, 9 years, but obviously he deserved to win his 8th Formula 1 title. He deserved to win it.
He was the best driver.
Driver, has he got the best car?
But he didn't deserve to lose it like that. Whether you're a fan of his or not, that's my point. Verstappen is a very talented driver.
He's a dangerous driver.
Red Bull have a good car as well.
Hang on a second. He's a dangerous driver. Honestly, I'll tell you. No, I said to the young lad now who's more of an F1 motorhead than me. I says there's going to be a crash in this. There's going to be something controversial happening. I said it 2 weeks beforehand, and it happened because when your season's on the line, someone's going to make a mistake, and I think the mistake was made off track.
Well, we wish Grimsby Town, we wish Man United, we wish Liverpool, and probably the golf Chris up there in Drummond. We wish that as well. We've come to the end, lads, of another edition. And is that raining there yet, Derwynne, is it?
No, I need to put some more lotion on in a minute.
It's raining pints. He's raining gin and tonics by the look of things.
Yeah.
So from Miami.
Have one for us, Derwynne. Have one for us.
Jesus, Derwynne, you must have one hell of a great expense account, I swear to God.
Derwynne, jealousy is an awful thing.
Of course I'm jealous. I should be out there beside the lads in the T-shirts. That's what it is.
Jealous. We're all jealous, Chris.
From Miami, from Seattle, from Limerick, from Shannon and myself, until we meet again, lads, thank you very much for your time. We'll see you all again next week, hopefully all being well. So from this edition of The Final Whistle, good evening and take care.
All right.
Thanks,
everyone. Bye-bye.
Thanks, bye.
Bye-bye.
Take care.